Chapter 1. The perfectly imperfect season. Joshua Price hated Christmas shopping. Not because he was a Grinch. He wasn't. But because every year, without fail, the city turned into a glittering battlefield of jingling bells, fake snow, and people who thought holiday cheer meant elbowing strangers for the last scented candle on the shelf. He adjusted the collar of his coat as he stepped out of the crowded department store, juggling a paper bag that held a scarf his girlfriend had casually mentioned wanting 2 weeks ago. The air was sharp, the kind that bit at your nose and made your breath puff out like smoke signals. Strings of lights draped across the street, blinking in synchronized patterns, and a giant inflatable Santa loomed over the entrance like a benevolent tyrant. Joshua sighed. 29 years old, 3 years into a relationship that was going well, whatever that meant. And still, Christmas felt like a performance he hadn't rehearsed for. He loved his girlfriend, sure. Emily was smart, funny, and had a way of making him feel like the world wasn't as heavy as it seemed. But lately, he'd been wondering if going well was just code for comfortable. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He fished it out, expecting a text from Emily asking if he'd remembered the wine for tonight's dinner. Instead, it was Hannah. Hannah, call me when you can. It's important. Joshua frowned. His younger sister wasn't the type to use words like important unless something was on fire or about to be. He hit the call button and pressed the phone to his ear as he walked toward the parking lot. Hey, he said, weaving past a couple arguing over wrapping paper. What's up, Josh? Her voice was bright, almost too bright, like she was trying to mask something. Guess what? You finally learned how to cook without setting off the smoke alarm? Haha, no, I'm engaged. Joshua stopped dead in his tracks, earning a glare from a man carrying a stack of gift boxes. You're what? Engaged? Hannah repeated, and he could practically hear her grin through the phone. Ethan proposed last night. It was perfect. Snow, lights, the whole thing. I said yes. Joshua felt a smile tug at his lips despite himself. Wow, that's congratulations, hon. Really? Thanks. Her voice softened, then hesitated. But there's a problem. Of course there was. Joshua resumed walking, his boots crunching against the thin layer of frost on the pavement. What kind of problem? The kind that involves Dad. Joshua's grip on the phone tightened. Dad. Ethan's family expects him at the wedding, Hannah said quickly, words tumbling out like marbles. They're big on tradition. Father walks the bride down the aisle, speeches, all that. I never told Ethan about, you know? Joshua's jaw clenched. He knew. How could he forget? 12 years ago, their mother had accused their father of cheating, and Joshua, 17, angry, stupid, had believed her without question. He'd thrown a punch that night, a clumsy, rage-fueled swing that landed squarely on his father's jaw. The look in his dad's eyes afterward wasn't anger. It was emptiness. That was the last time Joshua saw him. Han, Joshua said slowly. You haven't spoken to him in over a decade. Neither have I. Why would he show up now? I don't know. Her voice cracked, and Joshua felt a pang of guilt. But Ethan's family, they'll think it's weird if my dad isn't there. Josh, I need your help. Joshua exhaled, watching his breath curl into the cold air. What do you want me to do? Come with me to Mom's. Maybe she'll know how to reach him, or what to say. Joshua almost laughed. The idea of their mother helping was absurd. But Hannah sounded desperate, and despite everything, she was still his little sister. He rubbed a hand over his face. Fine, he said. Tomorrow. Tomorrow, Hannah agreed, relief flooding her tone. Thanks, Josh. You're the best. Joshua hung up and slid the phone back into his pocket, staring at the twinkling lights overhead. The best, right? He didn't feel like the best. He felt like a man about to dig up a ghost he'd buried 12 years ago. And for the first time all season, the cold didn't feel sharp. It felt heavy. Chapter 2. The problem? Joshua hated coffee shops in December almost as much as he hated department stores. They were crowded with people who thought ordering a peppermint latte made them festive, and every table was a battlefield of laptops, gift bags, and conversations loud enough to qualify as public announcements. He spotted Hannah immediately. She was perched at a corner table, her engagement ring catching the light like a tiny disco ball. Her blonde hair was tucked into a messy bun, and she was wearing a sweater so aggressively cheerful it looked like Christmas had thrown up on her. Joshua slid into the chair across from her, setting his coat on the backrest. You look merry, he said dryly. Hannah grinned. It's called holiday spirit. You should try it sometime. I did, Joshua said, lifting his paper cup. It tasted like burnt cinnamon. She laughed, but it was short-lived. Her fingers toyed with the edge of a napkin, twisting it into a sad little rope. Joshua noticed the way her smile faltered, and his stomach sank. He knew that look. It was the same one she wore when she was about to ask him for something he didn't want to give. So, he said, leaning back, tell me about this problem. Hannah exhaled, her breath puffing out like steam in the chilly air. Ethan's family is traditional. Joshua raised an eyebrow. Traditional as in Christmas carols and matching pajamas? Or traditional as in blood sacrifices under the mistletoe? Funny, she said flatly. They expect my dad to walk me down the aisle. Joshua stared at her. Your dad? The man we haven't seen since Mom kicked him out. Hannah finished, her voice tight. Yeah, that man. Joshua rubbed his temples. Han, you haven't spoken to him in 12 years. Neither have I. Why would he show up now? I don't know. Her voice cracked, and a couple at the next table glanced over. Hannah lowered her tone, eyes pleading. But Ethan's family, they'll think it's weird if my dad isn't there. Josh, I need your help. Joshua let out a humorless laugh. Help with what? Digging him up from whatever cave he's living in. Don't be dramatic, Hannah said, though her lips twitched like she wanted to smile. I thought maybe we could talk to Mom. See if she knows where he is. Joshua's jaw tightened. The idea of involving their mother made his skin crawl. But Hannah looked desperate, and despite everything, she was still his little sister. The same kid who used to follow him around with pigtails and a stuffed rabbit named Mr. Flop. He sighed. Fine. Tomorrow? Tomorrow, Hannah agreed, relief flooding her tone. Thanks, Josh. You're the best. Joshua snorted. The best at what? Making bad decisions? She grinned. Exactly. They sat in silence for a moment, the hum of holiday chatter filling the space between them. Joshua stared at the twinkling lights strung across the cafe windows, feeling the weight of 12 years pressing down on his chest. He'd buried that night. The shouting, the accusations, the look in his father's eyes, so deep he thought it would never surface again. But here it was, clawing its way back like a ghost demanding justice. Joshua took a sip of his coffee, grimacing at the taste. You know, he said slowly, if this blows up in our faces, I'm blaming you. Hannah smiled sweetly. That's fair. Joshua didn't smile back. He was too busy wondering if ghosts could forgive. Chapter 3. The visit. Joshua had forgotten how much his mother loved Christmas. Her house looked like the North Pole had exploded and no one bothered to clean up. Garland draped over every doorway. Twinkling lights blinked from every surface, and a life-sized nutcracker stood guard by the staircase like a festive sentinel. The scent of cinnamon and pine clung to the air so thickly Joshua felt like he was inhaling a holiday candle. He stepped inside, stomping snow off his boots, and muttered, "Wow, subtle." Hannah elbowed him lightly. "Don't start." Their mother appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a red apron that read Santa's favorite. Her hair was perfectly coiffed, her lipstick a shade too bright for daylight. She smiled like nothing had ever gone wrong in her life. "Josh, Hannah." She spread her arms wide, as if 12 years of fractured family history could be erased with a hug. "Look at you two. Come in. Come in." Joshua accepted the hug stiffly, his jaw tight. He hadn't been in this house in years, and it felt smaller somehow, like the walls had absorbed every argument and were still whispering about it. They settled in the living room, which looked like a Christmas catalog had thrown up on it. A tree glittered in the corner, drowning in ornaments. Stockings hung from the mantel, including 2 with their names stitched in gold thread. Joshua stared at his stocking, wondering why she'd kept it. Guilt? Sentiment? Or just decoration? "So," their mother said, perching on the edge of an armchair. "What brings you here?" "Not that I'm complaining." Hannah shot Joshua a look that said, "Don't make this harder than it has to be." He sighed and leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "We need to talk about Dad," he said. The smile froze on their mother's face, just for a second, before she smoothed it back into place. "Your father? After all these years?" Hannah jumped in before Joshua could add his usual sarcasm. "Ethan's family expects him at the wedding. They're traditional." "I didn't know what to tell them." Their mother's lips pursed. "Well, that's complicated." Joshua barked a laugh. "Understatement of the century." "Josh," Hannah hissed. He ignored her. "Do you know where he is?" Their mother hesitated, then shrugged. "Last I heard, he moved out of state. But that was years ago. Why would you want him there now?" "Because," Hannah said, her voice tight, "he's my dad." Joshua almost choked on the irony. 12 years ago, she hadn't cared about that. Neither had he. They'd both condemned him without a second thought. Their mother sighed dramatically, like this was all terribly inconvenient. "I suppose I could ask around. But honestly, Hannah, maybe you should consider someone else. A family friend, perhaps." Hannah's face fell. Joshua felt a flicker of sympathy, then smothered it under the weight of old anger. He stood. "Bathroom," he muttered, and walked down the hall. The house was too quiet back here, away from the hum of holiday cheer. Joshua splashed water on his face, staring at his reflection in the mirror. He looked older than he remembered, lines etched around his eyes, a shadow of weariness clinging to his jaw. Was this what guilt looked like after 12 years? Heavy, permanent. He dried his hands and started back toward the living room. That's when he heard voices, low, urgent, coming from the kitchen. "I can't believe you're bringing this up now," Hannah hissed. "I didn't bring it up," their mother snapped. "You did. You cheated on him," Hannah said, her voice sharp as broken glass. "You cheated, and then you blamed him." Joshua froze. The words slammed into him like a freight train. His pulse roared in his ears. You think I wanted to? Their mother shot back. I made a mistake. But what was I supposed to do? Admit it and lose everything? Joshua's breath caught. His chest felt hollow, like someone had scooped out his insides and left nothing but rage. Hannah's voice dropped to a whisper. Josh doesn't know. He still thinks Dad. Joshua stepped into the doorway, his shadow stretching across the tile. Josh doesn't know what? Two heads whipped toward him, eyes wide, faces pale. Silence crashed over the room like a tidal wave. Joshua's voice was quiet, deadly quiet. Tell me. Chapter 4. The overheard truth. Joshua stood in the kitchen doorway like a shadow carved out of fury. His voice was low, almost calm, but it carried the weight of a storm. Josh doesn't know what? Hannah's face drained of color. Their mother's lips parted, then closed again, like words had suddenly become dangerous. Joshua stepped forward, slow and deliberate, his boots thudding against the tile. Tell me, he said again, softer this time, but the softness was worse than shouting. Hannah swallowed hard. Josh, don't, he cut in, his tone sharp enough to slice through bone. Don't start with excuses. Just say it. Their mother straightened her apron like that could shield her from the truth. Joshua, this isn't. Say it. The word cracked like a whip, echoing off the garland-draped walls. Silence stretched, taut and trembling. Then Hannah whispered, Mom cheated. Joshua felt the world tilt. For a second, he thought he'd misheard. But the look on their faces told him everything. His chest burned. A slow, searing fire that crawled up his throat. You cheated, he said, his voice hollow. And you blamed him. Their mother's chin lifted, defiant even now. I made a mistake. A mistake. Joshua laughed, a harsh, broken sound. You destroyed our family. You lied. And we, his voice cracked, rage and grief colliding like shards of glass. We believed you. Hannah's eyes brimmed with tears. Josh, I wanted to tell you. When? He turned on her, his glare like ice. When were you planning to tell me, hon? Before or after we begged Dad to play prop at your wedding? She flinched. I thought it would hurt you more. Joshua's laugh was sharp, bitter. Hurt me more? I lost 12 years with my father because of you too. 12 years. His fists clenched at his sides, nails biting into his palms. Do you have any idea what that cost me? Their mother reached for him, but he stepped back like her touch was poison. Josh, please, no. His voice was deadly quiet now, the kind of quiet that made the air feel heavy. You better pray Dad forgives me, because if he doesn't, he looked at both of them, his gaze cold and final. I'm cutting you out. Both of you. The words hung in the air like smoke, choking the room. Hannah sobbed softly, her shoulders shaking. Their mother's face crumpled, but Joshua didn't care. He turned on his heel and walked out, the sound of his boots pounding against hardwood like gunshots. Outside, the cold slapped him in the face, but it didn't matter. He needed it. He needed something sharp to keep him from drowning in the weight of 12 stolen years. Snowflakes drifted down, soft and silent, mocking the chaos inside him. Joshua shoved his hands into his pockets and started walking, his breath ragged in the winter air. He didn't know where he was going. He only knew one thing. He had to find his father. Chapter 5. Fallout. The cold didn't bite anymore. It gnawed. Joshua walked without direction, boots crunching through snow that glittered under streetlights like shards of glass. His breath came in ragged bursts, fogging the air as if his anger had a temperature. He couldn't go home. Not yet. Emily would be there, waiting with wine and soft questions, and he didn't have answers, only a storm that threatened to tear him apart. He stopped at a park bench dusted with frost and sat hard, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. The silence pressed against him, broken only by the distant hum of traffic and the faint jingle of Christmas music from a nearby shop. It was obscene, how cheerful the world sounded when his own had just detonated. 12 years. 12 years of believing a lie so completely it had become part of his bones. He'd hated his father for something he never did. He'd condemned him without trial, without mercy. And the worst part? He'd been proud of it. Proud of defending his mother. Proud of being the man of the house. Joshua squeezed his eyes shut, and the memory came roaring back. The night everything shattered. He was 17, fists clenched so tight his knuckles burned. The living room smelled of whiskey and betrayal. His mother's voice was sharp, slicing through the air like broken glass. You cheated on me. After 19 years, you throw it all away for some woman. His father stood there, suitcase in hand, face pale and hollow. It's not true, he said quietly. I didn't. Liar. Joshua's voice cracked with rage. He lunged before he could think, before reason could catch up. His fist connected with his father's jaw, a sickening thud that reverberated through his bones. His father staggered but didn't fight back. He just looked at Joshua, really looked at him with eyes that weren't angry, weren't even sad. They were empty, like something inside him had died. Joshua froze, breath heaving, fury draining out of him like water through a sieve. That look, God, that look, had haunted him for years, though he never admitted it. It was the look of a man who'd lost everything and didn't even have the strength to beg for it back. Then his father turned and walked out the door. No shouting, no defense, just silence, and Joshua let him go. The memory shattered, leaving Joshua gasping in the cold. He pressed his palms to his eyes, as if he could scrub the past away. But it clung to him, heavy and relentless. He pulled out his phone, thumb hovering over Hannah's name. He wanted to scream at her, demand why she kept the truth buried while he drowned in guilt. But what was the point? She'd made her choice, so had their mother. Joshua stared at the dark screen, his reflection warped in the glass. "I have to find him," he whispered, the words tasting like penance. "I have to make this right, even if it killed him, even if his father slammed the door in his face." He couldn't live with this weight anymore. Joshua stood, shoving his hands into his coat pockets, and started walking. The snow fell harder now, blanketing the streets in white, as if the world was trying to cover its sins. But some stains didn't wash away. Not with snow. Not with time. Chapter 6. The search. Joshua had never realized how hard it was to track down someone who didn't want to be found. Turns out, Google wasn't much help when all you had was a common name and 12 years of silence. He sat at his kitchen table, laptop open, coffee growing cold beside him. The screen mocked him with a list of Joshua Price's father lookalikes. None of them the man he was looking for. One was a retired dentist in Ohio. Another ran a YouTube channel about fishing. His dad hated fishing. Joshua groaned and scrubbed a hand over his face. "This is ridiculous." "Agreed," said a voice behind him. He turned to see Emily leaning against the doorway, arms crossed, her dark hair falling over one shoulder. She wore his favorite sweater, the one that made her look like she belonged in a Christmas card, and her expression was equal parts curiosity and concern. "You've been glued to that screen for an hour," she said. "What's going on?" Joshua hesitated. He'd been dreading this conversation. Emily was patient, but she wasn't blind. She'd noticed his mood shift the second he came home from his mother's house last night. "I'm trying to find someone," he said carefully. Emily raised an eyebrow. "Someone important?" Joshua swallowed hard. "My dad." Her eyes widened. "Your dad? Josh, you've never—" "I know." He cut her off gently, guilt gnawing at his insides. "It's complicated." Emily walked over and slid into the chair beside him, her hand resting lightly on his arm. "Then uncomplicated. Talk to me." Joshua stared at the laptop screen, the cursor blinking like an accusation. "I found out something yesterday. Something that changes everything." Emily didn't push. She just waited, her silence soft and steady, like a blanket he didn't deserve. Joshua wanted to tell her everything. The lie, the betrayal, the years lost, but the words stuck in his throat. "Soon," he said finally, his voice low. "I promise." Emily studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, but don't do this alone." She kissed his cheek, warm and fleeting, before standing. "Dinner's in the oven. Try not to break the internet while I'm gone." Joshua managed a weak smile. "No promises." When she left, the silence returned, heavier than before. Joshua stared at the screen, then opened a new tab and typed in the only lead he had: his father's old workplace. 2 hours later, Joshua was knee-deep in awkward phone calls. "Hi, I'm looking for Richard Price. Used to work at—" "Hello? No, I'm not selling anything. I'm his son." "Yes, really? No, I don't need a car warranty." Click. He tried another number. "Hi, I'm trying to reach Richard Price. He retired? Do you know where he—" "Hello? Hello?" Click. Joshua dropped his phone on the table and groaned. "Fantastic. My dad's a ghost." He was about to give up when his phone buzzed with a text from Hannah. "Hannah, found something. Old neighbor says dad moved to a small town in Vermont. Runs a hardware store." Joshua stared at the message, hope flickering like a fragile flame. Vermont. A hardware store. It wasn't much, but it was something. He typed back, "Send me the address." As he hit send, his heart thudded against his ribs. This was it, the first real step toward fixing what he'd broken. Joshua leaned back in his chair, staring at the snow falling outside the window. For the first time in days, the cold didn't feel heavy. Felt like a challenge. And Joshua Price was ready to take it. Chapter 7. The reunion. The diner smelled like coffee and fried hope. Joshua stood just inside the door, snow melting off his boots, heart pounding like a drum in his chest. The place was small, linoleum floors, vinyl booths, a jukebox that hadn't worked since the Clinton administration. And there he was. Richard Price sat in a corner booth, a mug cradled in his hands. His hair was grayer now, his shoulders stooped, but Joshua would have known him anywhere. 12 years hadn't erased the shape of his jaw or the quiet weight he carried like a second skin. Joshua froze. For a second, he considered turning around, walking out, pretending Vermont had been a dead end. But then Richard looked up and their eyes met. Joshua's breath caught. His father's expression didn't change. No anger, no surprise, just stillness, like a man who'd learned not to expect anything. Joshua forced his legs to move. Each step felt like wading through cement. He slid into the booth across from Richard, his throat dry as dust. "Hi," Joshua said. and hated how small the word sounded. Richard set his mug down. Joshua. His voice was calm, even like they'd spoken yesterday instead of 12 years ago. Joshua swallowed hard. You look good. Richard's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile. You look older. Joshua let out a shaky laugh. Yeah, time does that. Silence stretched between them, thick and brittle. Joshua stared at the steam curling from his father's coffee, wishing he could rewind the clock, erase the punch, erase the years. I'm sorry, Joshua said suddenly, the words tumbling out like stones. Dad, I'm so sorry. I was stupid. I believed her. I didn't even ask. His voice cracked, raw and jagged. I threw away 12 years because I thought I was protecting Mom. Richard's eyes were steady, but there was something behind them now. A flicker, a shadow of pain. It wasn't just you, he said quietly. It was both of you. Joshua nodded, shame burning through him. I know, Hannah. She knows the truth now. She wants you at her wedding. Richard's jaw tightened. So that's why you're here. Joshua flinched. No. I mean, yes, but not just that. I needed to see you. I needed to tell you I was wrong. Richard leaned back, his gaze sharp as winter air. Do you know what it took to accept that I didn't have a family anymore? His voice was calm, but every word landed like a hammer. Years, Joshua. Years of silence. And now you show up because you need me to play a part. Joshua's chest caved in. He slid out of the booth and dropped to his knees on the linoleum, ignoring the stares from the waitress and the guy at the counter. Please, he whispered, voice breaking. Please give me a chance to make this right. Richard stared down at him, expression unreadable. Joshua's hands curled into fists against the floor. Punch me, he said hoarsely. Punch me so we're even. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then Richard's lips curved into the faintest grin. I guess getting older didn't make you smarter. Joshua let out a shaky laugh, relief flooding his chest like sunlight through cracks. Richard reached down and gripped his arm, pulling him to his feet. Sit down, his father said. We'll talk. Joshua slid back into the booth, heart pounding, hope flickering like a fragile flame. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something. And for the first time in 12 years, Joshua felt like he could breathe. Chapter 8. The heart-to-heart. Joshua sat across from his father, hands wrapped around a mug he didn't remember ordering. The coffee was lukewarm, bitter, but he drank it anyway, because it gave him something to do besides stare at the man he'd wronged. Richard stirred his own coffee slowly, the spoon clinking against ceramic. His face was calm, but Joshua could feel the weight behind his silence. It wasn't anger. It was something heavier, something that had settled in his bones over 12 years of solitude. Finally, Richard spoke. You know what hurt the most? His voice was quiet, almost conversational, but every word landed like a stone. It wasn't the accusation. It wasn't your mother screaming at me. It was you. And Hannah. Not even a question. Not even a chance to explain. Joshua swallowed hard. I was 17. I thought. You thought you were protecting her. Richard's gaze was steady, sharp as glass. I get that. But you didn't protect anyone. You destroyed what was left. Joshua's throat burned. I know. And I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Richard leaned back, studying him like a man trying to decide if a broken thing is worth fixing. Do you know how long it took me to stop waiting for a call? A text? Anything? He shook his head, a bitter smile tugging at his lips. Years, Joshua. Years of hoping my kids would remember I existed. Joshua's chest caved in. I'm sorry, he whispered. I can't change what I did, but I can try to make it right. Richard's eyes softened just a fraction. Why now? Joshua hesitated. He could lie, say it was about closure, about healing. But honesty was all he had left. Hannah's getting married. She wants you to walk her down the aisle. Richard's expression hardened instantly. So that's it. You're here because she needs a prop. Joshua flinched. No. I mean, yes, that's part of it, but... Richard held up a hand. Stop. I'm not anyone's dancing monkey. If she wants me there, it's not because her fiancé's family expects tradition. It's because she's ready to own what she did. Joshua nodded quickly. She will. I'll make sure of it. Richard's gaze didn't waver. I'm not saying no forever. But right now, no. I built a life without you. I'm not tearing it down for a photo op. Joshua's heart sank, but he understood. He hated how much he understood. Can we start over? He asked quietly. Not as father and son. Just two people trying again. Richard studied him for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. We can try. Joshua exhaled, relief flooding his chest like sunlight through cracks. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a door. A small, fragile door, cracked open just enough for hope to slip through. Richard reached for his coffee again, his voice softer now. You've got a lot to fix, Joshua. With her. With yourself. Joshua nodded. I know. And for the first time in 12 years, he believed it. Chapter 9. Hannah's Reckoning. Hannah sat on the edge of the couch, her engagement ring glinting under the soft glow of the Christmas tree. The lights blinked cheerfully, oblivious to the storm brewing in her chest. Ethan was in the kitchen, humming as he poured wine into 2 glasses, because he thought tonight was about picking wedding colors, not detonating a bomb. Her phone buzzed. A text from Joshua. Talk to Dad. He won't come. Not until you own what you did. Hannah's stomach twisted. She'd known this moment was coming, but knowing didn't make it easier. She shoved the phone aside as Ethan walked in, smiling like he always did, warm, steady, safe. Merlot okay? He asked, handing her a glass. Hannah nodded, fingers trembling around the stem. Ethan, we need to talk. His smile faltered. That sounds ominous. She took a deep breath, the kind that felt like swallowing glass. It's about my dad. Ethan sat beside her, concern flickering in his eyes. What about him? Hannah stared at the wine, wishing it were strong enough to erase the last 12 years. You've asked about him before. I never told you the truth. Ethan's voice softened. Okay, tell me now. Hannah's throat burned. When I was 17, my mom accused him of cheating. Josh and I believed her. We cut him out completely. I haven't seen him since. Ethan blinked, processing. So, he didn't cheat? Hannah's voice cracked. No, Mom did. I knew. I kept her secret. Silence fell, heavy and suffocating. Ethan set his glass down slowly, like he was afraid it might shatter. You've been carrying that for 12 years? Hannah nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. I thought I was protecting her. I don't know what I thought. Ethan leaned back, his jaw tight. And you never told me. Not once. I was ashamed, Hannah whispered. I didn't want you to think less of me. Ethan's laugh was sharp, bitter. Less of you? Hannah, you lied. For years. And now you want him at the wedding like nothing happened. Hannah flinched. I just wanted. What? Ethan's voice rose, anger simmering beneath the surface. A picture-perfect ceremony? A father-daughter moment for Instagram. Hannah sobbed, clutching the edge of the couch. No, I wanted to fix it. Ethan stood, running a hand through his hair. I think we need to postpone the wedding. The words hit like a slap. Hannah stared at him, her heart splintering. Postpone. Until you sort this out, Ethan said, his tone firm but not cruel. With him. With yourself. Because right now, Hannah, you're not ready. Hannah's breath hitched, the room spinning. She wanted to argue, to beg, but deep down, she knew he was right. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from Joshua. I'll help you, but you have to own it. Hannah wiped her tears, staring at the blinking lights on the tree. They looked like tiny stars, mocking her with their brightness. She'd wanted a perfect Christmas. Instead, she got the truth. And the truth was messy. Chapter 10. A Christmas Choice. Joshua stood by the window, watching snow drift lazily under the glow of streetlights. The world outside looked like a postcard. Quiet, perfect, untouched. Inside, the scent of roasted turkey and cinnamon filled the apartment, and soft Christmas music hummed from the speakers. Emily moved around the kitchen, humming along, her voice blending with the melody like warmth against winter. Joshua should have felt at peace. Instead, his chest was a battlefield of guilt and fragile hope. He'd spent the morning helping Hannah pick up the pieces after Ethan left. She'd cried until her voice broke, and Joshua had held her, silent, because there weren't words big enough to patch 12 years of lies. He promised he'd stand by her, even if the wedding stayed on hold. She'd nodded, eyes swollen, and whispered, fix things with Dad, for both of us. Now, hours later, Joshua still felt the weight of that promise pressing against his ribs. Emily appeared beside him, 2 mugs of cocoa in hand. You've been staring out there for 20 minutes, she said softly. Thinking about him? Joshua nodded, fingers curling around the warm ceramic. I saw him, we talked. Her eyes lit with cautious hope. And, Joshua exhaled, watching his breath fog the glass. He's not ready. He won't come to the wedding. But he didn't shut the door completely. He turned to her, voice low. It's something. Emily smiled gently, slipping her arm through his. It's more than something. It's a start. Joshua looked at her, really looked at her. The way her eyes softened when she saw his cracks, the way she never asked for more than he could give. For the first time in days, the tightness in his chest loosened. You're right, he said quietly. It's a start. They stood in silence, watching snow fall like forgiveness from the sky. Joshua's phone buzzed on the windowsill. He reached for it, expecting Hannah. Instead, his breath caught at the name on the screen. Dad, Merry Christmas, Josh. Joshua stared at the words, his throat tightening. 2 simple sentences, but they felt like a bridge, fragile, narrow, but real. Emily leaned over, reading the message. That's good, she whispered. That's really good. Joshua typed back slowly, fingers trembling. Merry Christmas, Dad. Talk soon? He hit send and set the phone down, his heart pounding with something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Outside, the snow kept falling, soft and steady, like the world was telling him that even broken things could be mended. One flake, one word, one choice at a time. Joshua turned to Emily, a smile tugging at his lips. "Come on," he said. "Let's make this Christmas count." And for the first time in 12 years, he believed it. Chapter 11. Threads of Forgiveness. Hannah stood outside the hardware store, snow crunching under her boots, heart pounding like a drum. The sign above the door was simple: Price's Hardware. Seeing his name there felt like a punch and a bomb all at once. She pushed the door open, the bell jingling overhead. The warmth inside smelled of sawdust and coffee. And there he was, her father, behind the counter, sorting nails into neat rows like the world hadn't shattered 12 years ago. "Dad," she whispered. Richard looked up slowly. His eyes were steady, unreadable. "Hannah." She swallowed hard, tears stinging her eyes. "I'm sorry." The words tumbled out raw and jagged. "I should have told the truth. I should have defended you. I didn't, and I hate myself for it." Richard's hands stilled. Silence stretched, heavy as winter. Then he said quietly, "Why now?" "Because I can't marry Ethan without fixing this," Hannah said, voice trembling. "And because you deserve better than what we gave you." Richard studied her for a long moment. Then slowly he nodded. "You were a kid," he said softly. "But you're not anymore." Hannah's breath hitched. "Does that mean?" "It means," Richard said, his voice gentler now, "we can try." Hannah sobbed, relief flooding her chest. She crossed the room and hugged him, clinging like she was afraid he'd vanish. For the first time in 12 years, he hugged her back. Chapter 12. A Question of Forever. Joshua had never been good at surprises, but tonight, he was determined. Emily sat on the couch, curled under a blanket, watching It's a Wonderful Life for the third time this week. The glow of the Christmas tree painted her face in soft gold. Joshua walked in, heart pounding, a small velvet box burning a hole in his pocket. "Movie marathon?" he teased, dropping beside her. "Classic," she said, smiling. "Don't judge." Joshua grinned, but his hands were shaking. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the box, setting it on her lap. Emily blinked. "Josh, I don't have a speech," he said, voice rough. "I just know that after everything, after losing 12 years with my dad, I don't want to waste another second with you." Emily opened the box. The ring sparkled like a star caught in silver. Joshua took a breath. "Marry me?" Her eyes filled with tears, and for a terrifying second, she didn't speak. Then she laughed, a bright, beautiful sound, and threw her arms around him. "Yes," she whispered against his ear. "Yes." Joshua held her tight, the weight of the past lifting like snow melting under sunlight. For the first time in years, the future felt like something he could hold. Chapter 13. Next Christmas. The house smelled of cinnamon and pine, just like it used to. But this time, it felt different. Joshua stood by the fireplace, Emily's hand in his, watching Hannah hang ornaments with Ethan. Yes, Ethan, because love, like forgiveness, deserved second chances. And then the door opened. Richard stepped inside, snow dusting his coat, eyes scanning the room like he wasn't sure he belonged. Joshua crossed the space in 3 strides and hugged him hard. Hannah followed, tears streaming down her cheeks. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Richard chuckled softly. "Looks like Christmas finally means something again." Joshua smiled, throat tight. "Yeah," he said, "it does." Outside, snow fell in slow, steady flakes, blanketing the world in white. Inside, laughter rose, warm and bright, weaving through the house like a promise. A promise that broken things could be mended. That love, messy, imperfect, stubborn, could find its way home.